man of the hour, Justin Smith. So one of the reasons we thought Justin would be a great speaker for this theme, you might have read in the write-up, he's been around Wilmington for 30 years, actor, entrepreneur, been in the hospitality business, bar, restaurant business, theater business with the Opera House and other endeavors. But one of the things I liked about when looking at his background, we thought he kind of embodied that punk spirit of, anything but boring, anything but usual, anything but typical. And as you can see when we're here, this is not your average kind of place. It's inventive and interesting and, willing to be a little bit different and dive into different things. So with that, I'm going to let Justin speak a little bit about his background and how he has made his career about making interesting choices.
Well, thank you very much, Carrie. I'm going to sit, and then I'm just going to probably word vomit. Punk is when she told me punk, it freaked me out. I am the least punk guy. The way I thought about punk in the world, I'm glad she clarified what it meant, because maybe you can piece together. But I'm not going to mention punk. I did my very first. I told Carrie my very first jobs was as a security guard, and I grew up in the 90s, so mosh pits is where I found myself often as a security guard, and the job was anybody who raised their arms above their shoulders, my job was to give them one warning, and then I had to knock their arms down. And coming from my giant self, with the levers that I had, I promise you, I stopped many a dangerous moment on a mosh pit. So that's my last punk story. I guess start at the beginning. I grew up in Vermont, and it was always I was always a bit it was always a bit punkish, if you will, as I was an athlete. I played every sport I possibly could, but at a very young age, I fell in love with theater, and working those two angles was really difficult. It proved challenging sometimes. But I was fortunate to have an amazing group of teachers and adults and my family who supported. My mom went to every single game I ever played. My mom went to every single production I ever did. And that was amazing, right? My high school drama teacher, and this is where luck comes into play, because we had, we ran our little high school, got $500 a year from the school, and the rest of it we had to raise ourselves. And it was all student board. It was all, we had one adult, and it was the teacher on the board, and he was one vote. And we ran it like a business. And we would have $30,000 a year budgets. And I learned about budgets, and I learned about building sets. I learned about everything known to man when it came to theater. We had to start from scratch and raise all the money, and then we would put on 3 shows a year as a student-run organization. As high school kind of finished up, I thought my acting was going to only be, I loved acting so much, but I thought I was going to have to put it aside because I was a basketball player and I was going to go to school on a basketball scholarship. And it became clear that that's the way it was going to go. So you have official visits for basketball, and I went to big schools to try, and I was going to play Division I basketball, and that was going to be my life probably. Except for my fallback school was this small school in Vermont called St. Michael's College. And I showed up, and this coach came to every single one of my games. He was great, whatever. He knew about me. He knew me, got to know me. So I show up to campus for my official visit, and he's standing there with a young lady. I get out, and he said, "Justin, good to see you." And usually when you go to these visits, it's like they show us the basketball facility and the weight room and all these things that attract basketball players. He said, "This is Julie Alexander. She is a theater major, and she's going to take you on a tour of the theater." And the first 3 hours of my official visit at St. Michael's College was the theater with this girl. That was pretty cool, and I'm like, I guess basketball isn't going to be my life all the way. So I decided to go to St. Michael's College, which at the time was just like, I want to act and I want to play basketball, and it was that easy. But it turned out to be a really you know, it seemed, I mean, you talk about karma or whatever, the stars aligning on how the rest of my life is going to shape. This place, I think we had 12 majors in all 4 years. I think there was like 4 people who were theater majors in each class. Every year, 16, that would be 16 majors. But it had an equity playhouse attached to it. So every summer, you know, you got your education, but every summer we got to intern at this theater company and learn every aspect. I was the stage manager, I did props, I did marketing, I did box office, I did it all, and graduated. And as my coach said on my last practice, this is Justin Smith, the first and last drama major ever to attend St. Michael's College. It was very challenging because my time was split. It was a very, very time-consuming time, but I left there knowing that it was not basketball I was going to pursue. It was acting. And my friend Rick was a year behind me, so I knew I had a year. We had made a plan to go to LA. I did not want to go to LA by myself at the time, so my aunt and uncle lived in Oak Island, just down the road here. And they said, hey, listen, you know, they have a film studio here. And I'm like, what? I didn't know anything about it. He's like, yeah, they're making movies, and Matlock is filmed here. So, and Matlock, whoa. Hang on, I'm coming. So I did. They came up, they picked me up. We took a 14-hour trek down here in 1994. And it was again a crazy, on my way to LA the whole time, crazy moment. I got here on a Wednesday. The first place I went to was Finn Cannon Associates. Their office was downtown. They gave me a list of agents. I called an agent. First name on the list was this fellow named John Bonnets. He said, come on in, come to my house tomorrow. So I went to his house. I met with him. It went good. I was going to meet with, there's a half dozen agents in town at the time. He calls me the next day and he's like, hey, how good are you at basketball? And I said, I'm pretty good at basketball. He's like, I think I have an audition for you tomorrow. So I said, he said, it's Matlock and it's a week worth role. It's a big guest starring role. Go do this. So the next day I go into audition. They call me back that afternoon, and by Friday morning I had gotten my SAG card. I got a week's worth of work on Matlock. I'm like, this is so easy. I'm gonna be a star. Holy cow, don't worry about it. Yeah, well, good, Mom, I'm good. I'm on Matlock. But I don't think I had an audition for like 8 more months after that. And I kept going about it. But I started taking classes, and I enrolled in classes here in Wilmington. And I met people. And at the same time, I was getting my jobs. I was getting my first jobs. One of the first jobs the first job I landed was Perkins, which was like a little, and I worked the graveyard shift. And the key to Perkins was get in the smoking section and never leave. Okay? So I get to the smoking section, I'd never take a break, because back then you could smoke and it was so busy in the smoking section at Perkins. But then, about a month into it, I said, I've got to get out of here. So I found this place downtown called the Wave Hog. And the Wave Hog changed my life. The Wave Hog is now the Wilmington Distillery, where Dock Street Oyster Bar is, next to the Real Cafe. Wave Hog had 2 owners, Dan D'Alessandro, Ian Mosley. Dan D'Alessandro would later go on, with my help, to open Real Cafe. Ian Mosley would open the Slice of Life, which is still there, but in a different place. It used to be where Fork and Cork is. Okay, so that was the first thing we did. I started working there. A typical day for me, I was the grill chef at Jersey Mike's and a bus boy. That was my day job, and I would clean the floors at the Wave Hog. And then at night, I literally did sometimes 10 plays a year. So I would do my plays in the evening and then go work the door at the Wave Hog. The typical time. Same time, I was getting to know people in the community, and me and 3 of my friends decided to start my very first theater company called Cosmic Productions. Now, Cosmic Productions was, just do a play whenever you felt like it. We didn't have any money. We didn't have the wherewithal. We didn't have anything like that. So we would, the Wave Hog folks who had nothing to do with theater, but I went in with a whole presentation on how I needed to borrow $1,500 to do a play. And if we didn't make any money or I couldn't pay you back, this is how I was going to pay it back through my checks. You're take $100 a week for 10 weeks and blah, 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 15 weeks, whatever it was, and I'll be paid back. So we went ahead. I did those I did 3 or 4 of those plays, and every time I would pay him back. And one of my, I was too young to realize that at the time, but as I look back and I realized, how come I stayed in Wilmington? Because I was definitely on my way to LA and New York a few different times. And I'm like, what was it? But here's what made Wilmington amazing. I think we had 22 people working at the Wave Hog at the time, right? 22 people. I think maybe 4 of them had ever been to a play in their lives, right? Opening night of all 4 of the plays that they helped fund, all 22 of them and their friends show up to my play, watch it. They're like, I don't know what I just watched. The first play we ever did was No Exit, which is this really kind of existential. What was that? They'd come and they were there with big old smiles on their face, and that type of community is why Wilmington made sense to me. So anyway, we get to the Wave Hog. Wave Hog is going to close down for the Real Cafe to open. The intent was for me to go to the second floor of the Real Cafe and turn it into a performance space, if you will. Improv, troops, maybe even plays, artists of the month. It was my floor. I actually named the Real Cafe. None of you probably knew that, right? But we were going to make it all about film. It was going to be film on the first floor and make it all about the history of Wilmington film. And on the second floor, we're going to have this big artist group. As it went on, I could feel the bar and the business was going to take over the art part of it. So it became a little less appealing to me. At the same time, I was doing a show, Julius Caesar, where I met this guy, Gil Johnson, who has become my business partner, a very good friend. And Gil Johnson says to me, he's playing Brutus and Julius Caesar, and we're sitting backstage at Greenfield Lake, which back then was just a cement pad, by the way. We're just sitting back there, and Gil's like, hey, his wife Barbara had worked for me several times at Wave Hog as a fill-in bartender. He's like, hey, I'm opening a bar. You got to come run this place for me. I'm like, I got to do the Real Cafe, man. I can't come. I'm sorry. As the art started to slip away from Real Cafe, the business started taking over, I was like, maybe I need to consider what Gil's talking about. So I went across the street from there and opened the Blue Post with Gil for the first 2 years. So I was general manager there. And sorry, I got to get a drink of water here. Pause. I have 20 minutes, so I got to take a few drinks of water for sure to kill time. So we get to the Blue Post. That's great. Ian has moved on. I promise these names will all make sense in a minute. Ian's moved on to the Slice of Life. Gil's at the Blue Post over here. One day, 1999, I guess it was, maybe September of 1999, I get a phone call from Ian, and he's like, hey man, I'm standing on a rooftop. I said, okay, and he's like, I want to put a bar on it. He's like, here's the thing, there's a 200-seat theater attached to it. And I said, huh? He's like, you got to come run this place for me. I said, well, where's it at? He told me. I ran up there. We were there. We get up there. We're looking at it. I'm like, this is big. This is a big job. This is a lot of money. He's like, yeah, we need more money. And I said, I might know someone. So I called Gil. Gil, I explained the same thing Ian did to me. Gil's at the Blue Post. He said, I'll be right up. That day, we signed a lease for City Stage Level 5. And that partnership, Gil, Ian, and I went on to open, and my wife, by the way, and Ian's wife. But the three of us, the three groups of us, went on to open 12 businesses over the next 20 years, and proved to be they're lifelong friends. Ian is no longer with us, but Gil is here in town right now, and still we still own Pros together. So City Stage was my baby. I miss it every day and what it meant to me. But I think we ended up doing about 145. I think I produced about 145 plays over 15 years. Our first play was Vampire Lesbians of Sodom. And it was even crazier than the title. The play was even crazier than the title, with some of my very favorite people at the helm. Our second play was Jesus Christ Superstar. And we cast a black Jesus, which in the late 90s, early 2000s was a bit outside the box, and we got a bit of flack for it, but it was brilliant. And we realized at that moment what we probably had, which was the ability to do to do a show the way we wanted to do a show. To do a show, in a non-traditional, non-conventional. We did shows like Debbie Does Dallas the Musical. We did shows like Pot Mom. We did shows, Pot Mom about a pot-smoking mom with a, ne'er-do-well family. Zombie Attack. All these fun, different shows that have, Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, Spring Awakening. All these great shows that could not be done, in a traditional sense. Trust me, I now own Opera House. Chandler's here, she owns Dillion. We can't do those shows. We can't do those shows at Dillion Hall. They just, they can't. We can't figure out how to get the audience there, and there would be too much of a spotlight, perhaps, on the negative instead of the positive, which were really fun, amazing experiences. So we're there. 2002, the next place we looked for, we get a call about a place near Wrightsville Beach. And we opened a place called Fibber McGee's, which was an Irish pub, and it's huge. There's a brewery there now, I can't remember, across the street from Sweet and Savory. And we signed the lease, and we were in business with our friends Brian and Christine Cadwallader, who owned Copper Penny. We opened it as an Irish pub. Half of it was kind of a sports bar Irish pub, and the other half was a restaurant, right? And this is where business becomes tricky. Both places were tricky. Level 5 was so seasonal. We didn't have any cover at the time. That cover, if you've been up there, there's now this big, huge, monstrous. But we were like a grounds crew. Literally, we had a tarp, and we had to run the tarp every time it rained to put sandbags on. It was just a wild, wild time. It's so seasonal, so difficult to run, but rewarding on the other side. Fibber McGee's was difficult because early on we realized the restaurant just wasn't, the restaurant wasn't going to make it. The bar was killing it. The restaurant wasn't going to make it. First time we really experienced, and I think there's one of these slides back here that says "Don't think." First time we were really we have to be reactionary, we have to move quickly, and we did. Okay, and we didn't think, and we just took out the booze, stripped down the menu to nothing, and turned it into a bar and club. I ran karaoke on Sundays, and we had DJs on Fridays and Saturdays, and both sides took off. It exploded. It's the first time I ever made real money in my life, and it was incredible. That didn't last very long, by the way, the real money part. But it did last for a couple of years, and just long enough for us to get to 2005, which was actually late 2004, remarkably, within 3 days of each other, we signed leases for our next two places. One of which was Yosaki, Husk, and the balcony at the time. And the other one was the first business that I could not convince Gil and Ian to do with me. I said, hey, my wife and I started going to Charleston all the time. In the early 2000s, because our friends Kristen and Pete lived down there. Kristen and Pete lived right next to a place called Fondue Liors. And it was a fondue place. We loved it. We're like, we have to do fondue. And it was not a real wide thought of concept at the time. Everyone remembers it like from the 70s, doing it with their parents or whatever. Back then, it was not overly melting pots. There were a few melting pots. They knew about the experience, but we got to do this. But Gil and Ian are like, fondue? No, thank you. So they were like, So they were not going to be my business partners. So we called Kristen and Pete in Charleston and said, hey, guess what? We found a space. We want to put a fondue restaurant. You want to come open our version of Fondue Liors? And they did. They came. They moved from Charleston, came up here and opened the Little Dipper with us. So we signed the lease 3 days apart, but July of 2005, we opened Little Dipper, and we don't open Yosaki until May of 2006. And it was just a big project. It was an empty shell and cost a bunch of money. So Little Dipper is one of those, even though Ian and Gil did not want in it, it was one of those things from the first day we were there. We never had a problem with the bank account. We didn't make a lot of money, but it never was in trouble. Yosaki, on the other hand, was life-altering. It cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we lost, holy cow, for the first 3 years, another few $100,000. We were in real, you want to talk about punch people in the face? That's what we were doing, but we were mostly doing it to each other. That's where, if I were to impart anything, where I have had so many partnerships before that and since then. That partnership, the Gil, Ian, Justin, Becca, that partnership was so strong because we had this thing where we could literally get in the bloodiest of battles, and every day at 11:30 we'd show up at the Dixie Grill to have lunch and figure it all out, and that's where so many of our decisions were made. So now so that's, we go on to open a few businesses, from 2006 to 2011 here or there, but it was a really difficult time. That was when the recession was going on, and Little Dipper was going strong. Level 5 was really finding a groove, and City Stage going strong. However, I was at a crossroads because, Fibber McGee's was running into hard times. We had to do a whole renovation. So I was out of money. I just spent so much money to open these other two places. I'm out of money, so I have to sell one of them. So I have a choice to sell Fibber McGee's, Level 5, City Stage. Well, I make the decision because Fibber McGee's had been to keep with Fibber McGee's. And it was very life-changing, and I sold Level 5 City Stage in 2006, knowing that I was still going to have complete control of the theater, which is why I loved Level 5, right? So it was okay. So I sell that to try and keep Fibber McGee's. And it's a battle. Sure enough, Fibber McGee's goes through more bureaucracy, kind of crazy. They wanted more bathrooms. We're having to build it. Sure enough, the whole place starts fading away, slowly but surely, to the point where we ended up selling it by 2010. I'm going to jump backwards now to my Matlock story and go through my up to 2010, my kind of how film worked for me. Okay, so I got Matlock, and Dawson's Creek came pretty quickly afterwards. A couple movies, and I was able to score parts on that. So I kept working a little bit as a working actor. But as I would say to any young actor, my few words of advice are, find a great second job. Okay, if you want longevity, make sure you're making money, because when you're not, that type of desperation is so apparent in everything you do. Okay, when you're not making money. But the second thing that I would say is say yes to everything. I mean, everything within your moral compass, but say yes to everything. And that's what I did. So from 1998 or so to 2005, I did like 14 local, small budget, independent movies. And let me tell you something, it is the most rewarding. I learned more than you learn on a set where you're treated like a prop most of the time. With a few days, I learned so much taking on these roles. You just have to prepare yourself that most of it is going to be really, really bad when you watch it back. Okay? If you prepare yourself for that, it makes it a little easier, right? And you learn so much. So if you try and be just the best part about a really bad thing, it's good. We're all learning, and it's an amazing thing. But you have to take that type of risk. I made the best relationships on those movies. I made, I would do it all until my girlfriend/wife said, "You are not. I don't see you. You're not doing another movie." I would still be doing them if they were going on. So that was my film career. Jumping ahead to 2010, things started to change. Okay, we were starting to figure out a way to make the Yosaki building work. And we made the decision to open a bar on the first floor, which was our original idea from the beginning, but we just didn't have the money. We're starting to have the money, so we made the decision to open the Husk on the first floor, which originally it was a buffet at first, and then it was a wedding reception hall, and then it became the Husk. The Husk changed the trajectory of that building and that business for us, money-wise. We were able to then be comfortable the rest of the way. 2010 was also a big moment in the theater. It was the first year Tony Rivenbark, who then ran Italian Hall, we had expressed mutual interest to start bringing a little bit of what City Stage had going on to Italian Hall. So we got to 2010. We had, since 2000, done a New Year's show at City Stage, and it was really successful. We did show after show. We had dinner and drinks afterwards and a DJ, but it had outgrew the Level 5 space. So I brought up to Tony, I'm like, Italian Hall had not had a New Year's event in years. So I brought up to Tony, I said, why don't we move our New Year's event to Italian Hall? You have 400 seats. This would benefit us. He said, sounds like a plan. he would then go on to give me dates for other performances that I could do as City Stage, and that was my goal, right, to grow City Stage, and it was good. And by the way, the New Year's event is still going strong. Now my company Opera House does it every New Year's Eve, but it's still going strong. But that changed the trajectory. At that point, City Stage was still as busy as it ever could be, but it was taking up so much of my time. My son was 3 years old, 4 years young. I was like, I don't think I can continue to do it. So I decided to back away, step up, give it to Nick, and Nick and Chandler kind of had a hand in that. In 2015, by 2015, I had faded away from City Stage and was just doing one show a year at Thalian Hall. Meantime, business-wise, everything was going good at this point. We weren't having any problems. We did have a couple of failed businesses in there. Businesses that didn't last long, I guess, maybe less than failures. But by 2016, Carl Marsburn, who owned how am I doing on time? Okay, good. That's perfect. I have 3 minutes of talk left. So to Carl Marsburn, a fellow named Carl Marsburn, who had the Henrietta for years with a big, huge boat, 400-person passenger boat, and I'd known him, and I call him Captain. He always stopped and chatted, and we loved downtown. We have a mutual feeling towards downtown. So Carl came to me and said, "Hey, I got this. I just sold Henrietta. He sold the Henrietta away. He's like, I got this pad. I want to put a little kitchen on it and do hot dogs, hamburgers, and sell beer. Come run it with me. Be my partner." I had a few questions for him. I said, "Can we do liquor? Can we have live music? Can we be open till midnight?" I had a few questions. And he's like, "Nah, we'll talk later." He didn't want to do that. So he went and he did it for a year. A year later, that was 2016, 2017, he came to me and said, "What were those stipulations again?" And I said, "This is what I want." And he said, "Come on, let's do it." And we formed and we opened Ann Bonnie's. To open Ann Bonnie's, we had to sell something. So we sold our share of the Little Dipper, which Kristen and Pete, my partners there, wanted to take that all for themselves anyway. So we sold out of that to open Ann Bonnie's. Ann Bonnie's goes strong. Theater's going strong. After 2010, as Atlanta and Charleston and Virginia all started picking up film-wise. So since 2010, I think Elisa and Cassie Kaz over there would probably, the auditions were plentiful for many years, and you'd book 3 or 4 things a year. So that kept kind of rolling in my acting work. My business life kind of made it all work over here. And now we come to this. We have since opened Prost, which is going strong. We used the money leading up to it from Front and Dock, which is the Yosaki building, to help open that, because that was going so strong. And we sold Yosaki last year, 1 year ago. Still going strong though. Yosaki and Husk. And then when we sold Yosaki and Husk, I had still a few commitments out there, which was to some of my very favorite employees who were all like, "We want to open a business." So in November, I get a call from the guy who built my furniture at Prost, who's just really, really creative and amazing. And he says, "Hey, I'm standing in a place I think you make a cool bar. And you're sitting at the place today." So I called my two bartender friends who I had promised if something came up that I'd let them know. And I said, "Hey, come on over here, guys." They're thankfully 20 years younger than me. And we decided to open the Rift. And that's where we're at. And we're, by the way, I am building a karaoke bar downtown right now, so keep your eyes open for that with the private rooms and that. And I guess I didn't mention in 2017 I was offered the Opera House Theater Company job, and I've been there since. Really challenging to do the not-for-profit thing. To turn from City Stage to Opera House has been a real learning curve for me. There's parts of it that I love. There's parts of it that are exhausting. It's all exhausting, but there's parts that I just don't like. But overall, it's been a really great success. And we're on our maybe 40th production for me. We're on our 40th year of being a company. And I'm really proud of it. We opened Hairspray last night, by the way. Go check it out. That's it. I'm done. That's my 20 minutes, I think.
He's a pro.
Vampire Lesbians?
No, you did it. You did it great.
Oh, Cosmic Productions, you did my first ship. I love it.
I'm just popping in to say if you have any questions for Justin, we'll do a couple minutes of Q&A.
Yeah. I covered it all, I know.
Tell us about Outer Banks.
Outer Banks, yeah, Outer Banks was amazing. Outer Banks is one of those like dream things as an actor because I have a recurring role on Outer Banks. I'm Barracuda Mike, and you go through agonizing audition processes generally for these things, and I had auditioned for every major male guest star role on that show. And would get close, and you feel that kind of momentum where you're getting close, whatever. Out of the blue, one Saturday morning, they said, "Hey, we got a role called Barracuda Mike, and Justin sent his headshot. He doesn't need to audition. He shoots on Monday." On Monday, they said, "Come on in," and I'll go back on season 5. Well, as my 3rd season on the show is Barracuda Mike, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Saturday night was an amazing. If anyone has not seen it, does not know about it, they made a movie about the first ever episode of Saturday Night Live, and it all takes place from 10 o'clock to 11:30, just before someone says live from New York. It's Saturday night, and I somehow I use probably because I'm so used to yelling at the top of my lungs, "When are we going to start this thing?" When I'm at the stage, I somehow was able to channel Joe Dixo, who was the stage manager for 25 years, and I got to play 25. So I spent 2 months filming in Atlanta, where they built an exact replica of Studio 8H at Rockefeller Center, and it was just the most amazing. Jason Reitman was the director, and so Willem Dafoe was in it. So many great, wonderful experiences from that. I pinched myself. I hope everyone watches it, which, judging by the box office, many of you haven't. But I hope you can find your way to it, because it's a really unique. My wife likens it to the bear at Saturday Night Live. It's kind of it's a bit shaky and a bit in your face, and not always easy to follow. But I think he accomplished exactly what he set out to accomplish, and I'm really proud of it. Yeah.
You also work on The Devil All the Time, right?
Yes, Devil All the Time. That was amazing. I worked on The Devil All the Time. I almost got a really big part, and then the casting director called me at the last minute and said, "Will you come play the morgue, the runner of the morgue?" And I just drove. It was a pretty cool thing. But I got to work with I got to meet Tom Holland and watch him. He had this crazy. Freak out scene in a car that I got to watch, and watching his process was really how he worked himself up for it. Watching a kid who is truly a pro. You always be learning on that set, and that was a real eye-opening experience how he worked himself up for that. That's probably my best Devil All the Time story. I don't have a lot of great stories from that one, but it was an amazing group of people.
Yeah, some of my favorite actors were in that movie.
Who is that?
Tom Holland, Sebastian Stan.
Oh, yeah. Sebastian Stan. My scene was with Sebastian Stan. He couldn't have been nicer. He's just a nice guy. Although they had him in weird prosthetics, so I'm like, "Who? This is Sebastian Stan? This can't be here with."
The wigs get me sometimes.
Yeah.
People wear wigs sometimes.
Justin, you accomplished so much. Good job. What drives you now at this point in your life? What's pushing you? What do you want to accomplish?
I have to thank you, Adrian. What a great question. Actually, I don't know. I still have the art part of it. I still want it, but maybe it doesn't drive me like it did, back in the 20s, 30s. I think my general philosophy for bars is good service, cold beer, and goodwill. And maybe I moved on to the goodwill portion of my life, but I've really enjoyed my process through karaoke. The karaoke bar. I've really enjoyed my process through this. Ian passed away a couple years ago. Going outside and maybe giving back to some of these former employees the things that I was getting. And that's probably maybe where, I don't know if that answers your question, but money always drives me. If I think it's a good deal, I don't know. I'm not going to lie, but yeah.
You named so many legendary
Well, this one, sometimes I try and tell people it's like the front of our bar, the front face of your bar. It means nothing in the grand scheme of thing, and I think that unless it's something uber descriptive, like the Real Cafe was supposed to be, but it never really turned out that way, by the way. Real Cafe was supposed to be a museum, an homage to Wilmington theater, and he had some stuff lined up, but it just kind of got too busy and away from him too quickly, took too much organization. That didn't happen. But naming process of the bar is agonizing and stupid. In every way possible. I can't. I don't. I think there was 150 names for this place. That kind of bounced around, and they were doing. We did analytics on this thing, and I'm like, I have no interest in. I just checked out. Just tell me what the name is, and I'll be there. So unless it's descriptive, who knows? Yosaki. I have no idea. We wanted that to be an urban flair. We thought that that's at that point there was a lot of like Southern cuisine, old school. Everyone was leaning into the historic. We wanted to highlight the historic, but lean into the urban. It's where we began to experiential dining, and experiential bars and restaurant is where we went. We wanted destination spots in a high trafficked area, right? So Little Dipper, it's an experience. Yosaki, it's an experience. Prost, the beer garden, we want that to be an experience. Same thing with Level 5. All those businesses after that, that's what they were. Yeah.
So you funded the Port City Beer Factory in Chapel Corners.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever wanted to produce like a movie?
It is, I get asked all the time, about that. I'm more inclined to turn you on to someone who might. That's probably not, people think if I gave money, I'd be dying to be in it. I would never want to be in a movie that I was the funder of. So it would have to be something I was really passionate about and believed in, and probably had a distribution deal. If all three of those things were in place, then I probably would consider it. But we have considered several times, and people come to us a lot with the movie thing. I'd love it. It just would have to be the perfect fit.
Your long, illustrious career, you had so many leadership positions and so too. Early on, or even now, has it ever been a struggle for you with people pleasing, or how do you manage difficult situations and driving forward the way you know you want to, but trying to honor those around you, or sometimes not?
Well, yeah, geez. That's a really great question, right? And it is, it's different for each business. It's a little different when people are making real money for you. My bartenders get treated a little differently. I talk to them differently. They make a lot of money, and therefore they get talked to in a certain way, and they have a bit of an expectation when it comes to me, sort of. So I think definitely, making sure you're managing, but when I'm doing my not-for-profit business, part of what I have to give is a bit of autonomy. It's just a little bit of the collaboration, right? I don't have any money to give in that business. So I have to let people collaborate. I have to welcome that. And therefore I have to, and one of the hardest parts since I moved from City Stage, which is a bit more autocratic to be perfectly honest. When I was at City Stage, it was for profit. And I called the shots, and I was a different person, right? But I didn't like that leader very much. I like the leader that I get to be at Opera House. I just don't like some of the minutiae that comes with it. I said I was going to write the shortest book in history. I developed a thing called the 5-word diet. And that's why Christmas is my very favorite time, because I can get out of any conversation by saying Merry Christmas. Seriously, try it next time. Walking down the street here, when the weight of your words, when you have, interestingly enough, when you have employees, but even more so in the theater business, anyone who's in that type of business, when it comes to casting, these people who you're casting yearn for these parts. They'll do almost anything for these parts, and when they don't get this part, it's impossible to make them happy or understand why, right? On the other side of that, on our side of it, right, you have to question whether or not people are being kind or friendly or nice to you because of who you are, or because of what you can give them, right? And that is the most difficult thing to manage. Hence the 5-word diet. If I feel that way for some people, it takes a lot of time to crack. I'm a shy guy to begin with, but it takes a lot of time to crack that shell for me. I've become really leery of it. So I don't know if that answers your question at all. I think it's really hard. I think, as far as I'm concerned, different people require different means of leadership, in my opinion. That it?
Are we wrapped? Well.
Good God.
We did great.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone. Oh, don't forget your little, Justin, your paper.
Oh, thank you. Oh.
That was
Thank- By the way, Megan, I just spilled a little water on Megan. Megan brought me this article from 2003. What good is City Stage? As it turns out, a whole lot is the headline. Which I don't remember they rang that, but that's very, very cool. See if I had that.